Hey guys, Hardwork here, and what I'm going to show you today is how to fill gaps. What we have, if you see right here, is a towel barracuda. And this is made out of resin. It's by Forge World, and it's a pretty good model. The problem is that some of the pieces require some TLC to get them to fit into place, and especially this little engine nacelles back here. You want them to look, when the model's finished, like things would be flush here and flush here. So unfortunately that means that you have to sand the parts back here. So you have to sand them to fit in. And so what I've done is I've taken the time and sanded this one more or less by hand. So you can see that I did a pretty good job of not making too big of a gap. Then I sanded this one over here with the old belt sander because I was a little impatient, and I made a giant gap. Well, you would think, man, that's something. Why don't you just throw a bunch of super glue in there? The problem being that that is a big old hole, and that would take a lot of super glue. Now this one, we could probably seal that off with some super glue, and then sand it down, and it would look okay. We don't want this one to stick out too much. So what we're going to do, we're going to take some plastic card and we're going to put it in there like this, and then we're going to super glue it, put some super glue on it, then we're going to put the plastic card in here like this. We'll let it dry. Then we're going to cut it off. Tick, 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 tick. Then we're going to size it down, and we're going to do the same thing right here. We're going to put the plastic card in, and then we're going to super glue it, and then we're going to cut it down. And in essence, what we've done is filled in the hole with plastic card. And at that point, we'll take a bead, we'll get it all sanded flat. We'll take a bead of super glue, and we'll run it across the top. You could actually do this with green stuff or liquid green stuff. However, I choose not to use the putties. I like to use super glue to fill my gaps because of the fact that it dries quicker and you can work on it now instead of waiting till later. So let's take a look at this real quick while we do it. Alright, so I'm gonna put some super glue on both sides. And we're gonna come right in, and that is going to cause the super glue to smear and fill up the space. Take a little zip kicker, and what I do is I put my zip kicker in little dispenser bottles like this, and we'll just wait. Let's do this first. We're going to wipe off a little excess super glue with a Q-tip. Now we'll just come in and we'll drop. Bam. Just takes a drop. Give it a second to adhese, and then we're going to come in with these and just clip it off. Alright, and then we'll come over here, see how far we got to go. This probably needs to be shaved down just a little bit. We're going to give the little piece a little wedge shape so it fits down in there better. Alright, just like that. Go back to our super glue. Get our Q-tip to take off the excess. And there you have it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sand that flat. We're going to sand it flush with the model, and then we'll run a bead of glue in there and in there, and it will all heal up. Now see what I'm going to use here, instead of using the medium glue, I'm going to use a thin super glue. And thin super glue is just that. It's basically more like water instead of a thick glue. Whoops. And it will run right into the cracks, no big deal. But just like you saw just there, working with thin super glue is a challenge because of the fact that it is so thin and runny that it just wants to get everywhere. Alright, there we go. Filling in the cracks. You can see it's running in there and filling in just like water. And we'll do it right here. Wow. If you can, it always does you good to remove as much of the extra glue that comes over as possible, so that you don't have to deal with the sanding it later. Now, we can also use debonder to get the super glue off. Right now we want to make sure that we're getting all the cracks. There we go. Alright, give me a second to sand this up, and then we'll come back and check it out. Alright guys, here we go. Here's what it looks like cleaned up. You can see that for the most part, everything around here is the same thickness. We have a little tab sticking off down there that we're going to have to basically get our X-Acto and shave that down. But you can see right here that there's super glue, and what that means is that this portion of the model is higher than this portion. And you can handle this two ways. You can either sand this down to where it's completely flat, or you can now come in with a piece of sandpaper and sand this way to make all this a little bit well-rounded. It's totally up to you, but what I would say is if you're going to be removing more detail than you're saving, then I would for sure, I would do the method this way to clean up that, so you don't lose any more of this detail. Sanding back and forth along these lines, along this axis here, you can see that our plastic card is just basically filled in the hole. And once that's painted, you may be able to see just a couple of little indicators that it's there, but I doubt it. One thing that might be good to try here are these sanding pads. They're pretty good. They have different grits. They're usually made for like polishing canopies and stuff. For some reason I have like 50,000 of the same one. So like here's a 1800 grit, so a little bit rougher grip. We'll just come in and sand, but the good thing about these pads is that they're flexible and they'll conform to the curves. So we just come in now and we start removing that dried super glue, and then at the whole time we're kind of just dressing up our thing, but we're not really impacting the curve because this is flexible. It's not like sanding across here with this where we're going to make it, you know, an angle. This will conform to the curves, and now we can just do like this. See if there's any shininess left, just a little bit. Alright, there you go. I mean, that looks pretty good. I think it's pretty good. It looks good from the back. Looks good from the front. All we're going to do is come in right here. See if I can find one of my X-Acto knives. One of my good ones. This one's got a broken blade. I don't know if it'll reach. Just ease that off right there. That worked out pretty good. And then brush it out. Booyah. Alright guys, check out this side right here. This is a prime candidate for some thick super glue. That's what I have right here, thick. The good thing about thick super glue is that it doesn't run. And basically will go right into where you put it. So it's going to look a little messy at first, but you'll see. It goes right into the gap. And it doesn't run all over the model. Now we can take our Q-tip and clean up some of the edge. We want to make sure we don't remove the super glue, but we want it to flow deep into the recesses, because we're going to sand it here in just a second, and we want the super glue to be down in there so that we can get a good bead on it. So let's hit it with the zip kicker. Alright, you can see right here that there's a little dip. So what we do is we just go back and we just put more zip kicker, or more super glue. With the zip kicker on there, it's drying pretty quick. And then that's all we got to do. Now what we're going to do is sand. Alright, want to make sure it's good and dry. Get our shirt here. Now, of course, all this would be better if we had just had a little bit more patience in sanding, so we didn't necessitate all this, but it's a good opportunity to show, you know, how to fix these gaps. Guys, here's the finished product. Got a little bit of resin dust to move out of the way. As you can see here, the seam's completely cleared in and or filled in, and it's flat. The difference between the super glue and the plastic card is that you can see the plastic card where the super glue is clear, but both of these seams are smooth over the top. So when you prime them, that's when you find out how well of a sanding job you've done. But once you lay a light coat of primer on there, if you still need to sand, you could just go back in and fill it and sand and then prime over it again until you get a very smooth surface. So there's a couple techniques for you. One super glue, one plastic card. Hope that helps. You know, sometimes dealing with these Forge World models is a bear. But as you can see, it looks pretty good. If you're wondering what that purple is, I had to soak these things in purple power to get the release agent off of them, and it dyed some of it. But that won't be no big deal because it'll come off as soon as it's or it won't come off. It'll cover up as soon as it's primed. But if you want to look, magnetize the cockpit. 2 little magnets there, 2 little magnets there. It's got a little pilot in it, and it snug down pretty good. So it fits pretty good. There's a little bit of a seam there. If I wanted to, I could take some thinner plastic card and put right there, but I'm just not really going to worry about that. This is a play-in model, not a contest model. So this thing right here is pretty cool because it comes up and reveals the missile bay in there. Then it goes back in, and that's about it.